You all must have heard this proverb, hard work is the key to success. But what makes you to remain successful is dedication and consistency. Today I am going to tell you about a person who is epitome of this. This story started when India won 2008 edition of Under 19 Cricket World Cup. A young chubby boy who loved North Indian food rose to fame in cricketing circuit. As everyone have already guessed, yes, this typical Delhi boy with on your face attitude was Mr. Virat Kohli. As this video is all about his test career, so let's confine this video to that only. Virat made his debut for India in ODIs against Sri Lanka in August 2008, but got his test cap 3 years later in 2011 against West Indies in Jamaica. But he didn't have good time in his first test as he was dismissed for low scores in both of his innings. But in the coming few months, he had the real challenge waiting for him as he was picked for the Border Gavaskar Trophy in Australia. In the first two tests on the shores of Australia, Virat struggled and couldn't score enough, but that didn't stood out as even the greats of the team were not scoring good. But in the third test, Virat showed some character and showed gritty 44 and 75 runs in both innings respectively. This time he stood out. And eventually, after fourth test, he returned as the only centurion for India from the tour. He continued his good form in South Africa also, where he scored first innings century in Johannesburg and a fine 96 runs knock in second innings. He continued his good form in New Zealand and ended the tour on a high with unbeaten 100. Virat's career was moving smoothly, but it slipped out of its path. He went through tough phases, perhaps the toughest as the batsman. We are talking about the tour of England in 2014. James Anderson was spitting fire and became nightmare for Virat Kohli. In the total of 10 innings, he would just score 134 runs. Media and public criticized him and experts started questioning his technique. Kohli returned disappointed, but had few months before the tour of Australia. And at the time, no one was even sure that whether he would be in the team or not. To solve his problem, Kohli took help of best in the business. He talked to his childhood hero Sachin Tendulkar, who gave him some invaluable batting tips that would turn around his career in the coming few months. And yes, he was picked for Australia tour as his captain MS Dhoni believed in him. Virat was made captain in the first test in Adelaide as Dhoni was injured. And that was the match which changed the way people saw Virat Kohli as the test batsman. However, India lost the match, but that match was just a demonstration that what India will be doing in coming few years. Dhoni returned in the second match, but the result was same, and somehow he realized that this isn't working anymore. Dhoni took a sudden retirement in the middle of the series, and Virat was appointed as the captain for the next 2 matches, and since then he was captain for 7 straight years. Last 2 matches of the series were drawn under Virat's captaincy, and he returned with 4 centuries to his name. King Kohli had arrived. Then as the full-time captain, he went to Sri Lanka and won the series by 2-1. And then India defeated the world number 1 South Africa by 3-0 in India. And he took Indian team to number 1 spot in the test ranking. Remember, India was number 7 when he became the captain. In 2018, his team went to South Africa. Although India lost the series but fought really hard to win a single test and picked 20 wickets in every match. Later the same year, Virat was again at the same place where it all started. the country of kangaroos. But this time, Kohli and the company had other plans in mind. They toiled hard on Australian shores and created history by winning the first ever Test series in Australia and became Asia's first side to do so. Virat had one century in that tour. Kohli as a captain has more overseas wins than any other Indian captain, that is 16 wins. He became the fourth most successful Test captain ever with 40 wins. Above all these records, the most important contribution of Virat Kohli to Indian Test cricket is that Indians started believing that they can win the series in every country. And if India couldn't win, it didn't feel like usual business, unlike a decade ago, when losing overseas Test was a habit. As the great man bids adieu to leadership, hope he will show best of his batting skills in rest of his career. A big salute to King Kohli.